Question 1. Quality control measures reveal that a student applicant for Ahliyya Amman University has submitted an essay for their entrance exam that incorporates significant portions of text and ideas from an online article without any form of citation or acknowledgement of the original author. Which of the following best reflects the expected ethical and regulatory standard for this applicant's submission? Option A. Submission is unacceptable as it constitutes plagiarism, violating Ahliyya Amman University's academic integrity policies by presenting borrowed material as original work. Option B. The submission is acceptable if the student has rewritten the borrowed content in their own words, even without citation. Option C. The submission is acceptable because the original online article was relatively short, implying less need for formal citation. Option D. The submission is acceptable as long as the instructors are unlikely to detect the source of the borrowed material. Correct answer is A. The submission is unacceptable as it constitutes plagiarism, violating Ahliyya Amman University's academic integrity policies by presenting borrowed material as original work. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of the foundational principles of academic integrity and ethical conduct expected of students at Ahliyya Amman University. The challenge lies in distinguishing between acceptable academic practices and those that constitute plagiarism, a serious academic offense. Careful judgment is required to identify the most appropriate response that upholds the university's commitment to original work and learning. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves recognizing that submitting work that is not one's own, without proper attribution, is a direct violation of academic integrity policies. This approach correctly identifies the need to adhere to the university's guidelines on academic honesty, which are paramount for maintaining the credibility of the educational process and the value of the degrees awarded. Ahliyya Amman University, like all reputable institutions, expects students to produce original work and to cite sources meticulously. This approach aligns with the university's regulatory framework concerning academic misconduct. Incorrect approaches analysis. An approach that suggests the content is acceptable as long as it is rewritten in one's own words is incorrect because it fails to acknowledge that even paraphrased material requires attribution. The core idea or information still originates from another source, and failing to cite it constitutes plagiarism. This disregards the university's expectation of acknowledging intellectual property. An approach that proposes submitting the work without concern, assuming the instructors will not notice, is fundamentally unethical and a direct violation of academic integrity. This demonstrates a disregard for the university's rules and the principles of honest scholarship. It also undermines the learning process by attempting to bypass genuine effort. An approach that focuses solely on the length or complexity of the original source material as a determinant of whether citation is needed is incorrect. The requirement to cite sources is not dependent on the size of the original work, but on the origin of the ideas or information being presented. Any borrowed content, regardless of its source's length, must be properly acknowledged according to Ahliyya Amman University's academic regulations. Professional reasoning. Professionals in academic settings, including students, must adopt a proactive stance towards academic integrity. This involves understanding the university's specific policies on plagiarism and citation. When in doubt about whether to cite a source, the professional decision-making process dictates erring on the side of caution and providing attribution. This involves familiarizing oneself with the university's student handbook or academic regulations, which clearly outline expectations for original work and the consequences of academic dishonesty. The focus should always be on demonstrating one's own understanding and contribution, while respectfully acknowledging the work of others. Question 2. Cost-benefit analysis shows that a new, potentially lucrative but unaccredited vocational program could significantly boost Ahliyya Amman University's revenue in the short term. However, the program's curriculum is still under development and lacks formal accreditation from the Jordanian Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research. The university's leadership is considering launching the program quickly to capitalize on market demand, which approach best aligns with the university's ethical and regulatory responsibilities. Option A. Launch the program immediately to secure the financial benefits, with a plan to seek accreditation retrospectively. Option B. Prioritize the financial gains by outsourcing the program delivery to a third-party provider that claims to offer similar accredited courses elsewhere, without verifying their accreditation status in Jordan. Option C. Proceed with the launch, marketing it as a pre-accredited program to attract students while the accreditation process is underway. Option D. Conduct a thorough review of the program's curriculum, faculty qualifications, and market relevance, ensuring it meets all Ahliyya Amman University academic standards and seeking formal accreditation before any student enrollment. Correct answer is A. Launch the program immediately to secure the financial benefits, with a plan to seek accreditation retrospectively. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate financial benefits of a new program against potential long-term reputational risks and the ethical obligation to ensure student welfare. The university must consider not only the potential revenue generation, but also the quality of education and the employability of its graduates. Careful judgment is required to align institutional goals with ethical responsibilities and regulatory compliance. The correct approach involves a comprehensive assessment that prioritizes student outcomes and adherence to Ahliyya Amman University's established academic standards and any relevant Jordanian Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research guidelines. This includes thoroughly evaluating the proposed program's curriculum, faculty qualifications, and market demand, ensuring it aligns with the university's mission and accreditation requirements. The ethical justification lies in the university's duty of care to its students and its commitment to providing a valuable and recognized education. Regulatory justification stems from the need to comply with all applicable Jordanian higher education regulations, which often mandate program quality assurance and student protection measures. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the projected revenue without adequate due diligence on program quality fails to uphold the university's ethical obligations. This could lead to offering a substandard program, harming student prospects, and damaging the university's reputation. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes speed of implementation over thorough vetting risks overlooking critical accreditation requirements or potential accreditation issues, which could invalidate degrees and lead to severe regulatory penalties. A third incorrect approach that dismisses potential negative feedback from current students or faculty without proper investigation, ignores valuable insights that could prevent future problems, and demonstrates a lack of commitment to continuous improvement and stakeholder engagement. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with clearly defining the problem and objectives. This is followed by identifying all relevant stakeholders and their interests. Next, a thorough information gathering phase is crucial, including reviewing internal policies, external regulations, and market research. The generation of alternative courses of action, as presented in the options, is then undertaken. Each alternative should be evaluated against established criteria, including ethical considerations, regulatory compliance, financial viability, and impact on student welfare. Finally, the chosen course of action should be implemented, monitored, and reviewed for effectiveness. Question 3. System analysis indicates that an applicant is being considered for admission to Ahliyya Amman University's entrance exam. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the university's regulatory framework for assessing candidates? Option A. Prioritizing the applicant's admission due to a strong recommendation from a prominent alumnus of the university. Option B. Considering the applicant's financial capacity to pay tuition fees as a primary factor in their admission decision. Option C. Giving significant weight to the applicant's involvement in sports, even if not directly related to the program of study and not a specified admission criterion. Option D. Evaluating the applicant based on their performance in the Ahliyya Amman University entrance examination and any supplementary academic criteria explicitly outlined by the university. The correct answer is D. Evaluating the applicant based on their performance in the Ahliyya Amman University entrance examination and any supplementary academic criteria explicitly outlined by the university. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of the fundamental principles governing university admissions, specifically as they relate to Ahliyya Amman University's entrance exam framework. The challenge lies in identifying the approach that aligns with the university's stated regulatory guidelines and ethical considerations for fair and equitable assessment, rather than relying on external or irrelevant factors. Careful judgment is required to discern between approaches that uphold the integrity of the entrance examination process and those that could compromise it. The correct approach involves prioritizing the applicant's demonstrated academic merit and suitability for the chosen program, as assessed through the official entrance examination and any supplementary university-defined criteria. This aligns with the core regulatory principle of merit-based admissions, ensuring that all candidates are evaluated on a standardized and objective basis. The university's entrance exam is designed to be the primary determinant of an applicant's readiness, and adherence to its structure and evaluation criteria is paramount for maintaining fairness and transparency. An incorrect approach that focuses on the applicant's family connections or financial status fails to adhere to the regulatory framework of the entrance exam. This approach introduces subjective and irrelevant factors, undermining the principle of equal opportunity and meritocracy that underpins university admissions. Such a method would be ethically unsound, as it deviates from the stated purpose of the entrance exam and could lead to the admission of less qualified candidates, thereby compromising the academic standards of Ahliyya Amman University. Another incorrect approach that emphasizes the applicant's participation in extracurricular activities unrelated to academic preparedness, without explicit weighting in the university's admission criteria, also falls short. While extracurriculars can be valuable, their relevance to entrance exam success must be defined by the university's regulations. Introducing them as a primary consideration without such a mandate would be a departure from the established assessment framework and could lead to an unfair evaluation. The professional reasoning process for similar situations involves a thorough understanding of the specific institution's admission policies and regulatory guidelines. Professionals must always refer to the official documentation governing the examination and admissions process. When faced with a decision, the primary consideration should be whether the chosen approach directly addresses the criteria established by the university for evaluating candidates through its entrance examination. Any deviation that introduces external, subjective, or non-mandated factors should be immediately recognized as a potential ethical and regulatory breach. The focus must remain on objective assessment as defined by the institution. Question 4. Strategic planning requires Ahliyya Amman University to consider a lucrative partnership offer from a company with a questionable environmental record. The offer promises significant funding for a new research center, which would greatly enhance the university's research capabilities and prestige. However, the company's past practices raise ethical concerns that could potentially tarnish the university's reputation. Which of the following approaches best aligns with responsible strategic planning for Ahliyya Amman University within the Jordanian higher education regulatory framework? Option A. Initiate a comprehensive due diligence process to thoroughly investigate the company's environmental record, assess potential reputational risks, and explore mitigation strategies before making a final decision. Option B. Accept the partnership immediately to secure the substantial funding and boost the university's research profile, assuming the company's environmental issues are in the past and unlikely to affect the university. Option C. Decline the partnership outright due to the company's environmental record, prioritizing the university's reputation above potential financial and research gains. Option D. Negotiate a revised partnership agreement that excludes any mention of the company's environmental practices, focusing solely on the financial and research aspects of the collaboration. The correct answer is B. Accept the partnership immediately to secure the substantial funding and boost the university's research profile, assuming the company's environmental issues are in the past and unlikely to affect the university. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's immediate financial needs with its long-term academic integrity and reputation. The pressure to secure funding can lead to decisions that compromise ethical standards or violate established university policies, which are implicitly governed by the broader regulatory framework for higher education institutions in Jordan, as overseen by the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any partnership aligns with the university's mission and values and does not create conflicts of interest or expose the institution to undue risk. The correct approach involves a thorough due diligence process that prioritizes the academic and ethical alignment of any potential partner with Ahliyya Amman University's objectives. This includes scrutinizing the partner's financial stability, reputation, and commitment to ethical practices, as well as ensuring transparency in the proposed collaboration. This approach is justified by the university's responsibility to its students, faculty, and the wider community, and adherence to principles of good governance and academic stewardship, which are foundational to the Jordanian higher education regulatory environment. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the financial benefits, without adequate scrutiny, risks violating principles of academic integrity and potentially contravening guidelines set by the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research regarding institutional partnerships and financial dealings. This could lead to reputational damage, legal liabilities, and a compromise of the university's educational mission. Another incorrect approach that involves rushing the decision-making process to meet immediate financial targets without engaging relevant stakeholders such as academic departments or the university's legal counsel bypasses essential checks and balances. This can result in overlooking critical risks or failing to secure appropriate contractual protections, thereby exposing the university to unforeseen problems. A professional decision-making framework for similar situations should involve a multi-stage evaluation process. This includes initial screening based on strategic fit and ethical considerations, detailed due diligence covering financial, legal, and reputational aspects, stakeholder consultation to gather diverse perspectives and ensure buy-in, risk assessment and mitigation planning, and finally, a formal approval process that adheres to university statutes and relevant Jordanian higher education regulations. Transparency and documentation at each stage are crucial for accountability and to demonstrate adherence to best practices. Question 5. Upon reviewing the examination hall during the Ahliyya Amman University entrance exam, you observe a candidate discreetly referencing a small, folded piece of paper concealed within their sleeve. The university's entrance exam regulations clearly state that no external materials are permitted. What is the most appropriate immediate action to maintain the integrity of the examination process according to the university's framework? Option A. Verbally warn the candidate to stop referencing the paper and allow them to continue the exam. Option B. Discreetly note the observation and report it to the chief invigilator or designated examination authority for further investigation and action as per university policy. Option C. Ignore the observation to avoid disrupting the examination for other candidates. Option D. Immediately approach the candidate, confiscate the paper, and dismiss them from the examination hall. The correct answer is B. Discreetly note the observation and report it to the chief invigilator or designated examination authority for further investigation and action as per university policy. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to academic integrity and the application of university regulations. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need to uphold academic standards with the university's specific entrance exam guidelines, which are paramount in this context. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any action taken is consistent with the Ahliyya Amman University entrance exam's regulatory framework. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding and strict adherence to the Ahliyya Amman University entrance exam's stated rules regarding the use of external materials during the examination. This approach prioritizes the integrity of the assessment process as defined by the university. Specifically, if the exam regulations explicitly prohibit any form of external assistance or reference materials, then reporting the observed behavior and allowing the examination to proceed under supervision, without intervention that might alter the outcome for the candidate, is the most appropriate course of action. This upholds the principle of fair assessment for all candidates by ensuring that no one gains an unfair advantage through prohibited means, while also respecting the exam's procedural integrity. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the observed behavior. This fails to uphold the university's commitment to academic integrity and creates an unfair advantage for the candidate in question, potentially undermining the validity of the entrance exam results for all participants. It also neglects the responsibility of invigilators to ensure a fair testing environment as stipulated by the exam's guidelines. Another incorrect approach would be to directly confront the candidate and confiscate their belongings or attempt to penalize them during the exam, without following the established university procedures for handling such incidents. This could lead to disruption of the examination environment for other candidates and may violate the specific disciplinary protocols outlined in the Ahliyya, Amman University entrance exam regulations, which likely dictate a formal reporting and investigation process rather than immediate on-the-spot punitive action by an invigilator. A further incorrect approach would be to report the incident to a general administrative body without specifying the exact nature of the violation and its potential impact on the exam's integrity according to the Ahliyya Amman University entrance exams rules. This lacks the specificity required for effective resolution and may not trigger the appropriate review process mandated by the exam's regulatory framework. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve, first, clearly identifying the specific rule or regulation from the Ahliyya Amman University entrance exam that has been potentially violated. Second, assessing the immediate impact of the violation on the fairness of the examination for all candidates. Third, following the prescribed reporting procedures as outlined in the exam's guidelines, which typically involves documenting the observation and reporting it to the designated authority for investigation and decision. And fourth, ensuring that any action taken is consistent with the university's stated policies and procedures for maintaining academic integrity during entrance examinations. Question 6. Market research demonstrates that a significant number of prospective students from a particular region often face challenges in accurately documenting their prior academic achievements due to varying educational systems. An applicant from such a region submits an application to Ahliyya Amman University, and while their stated qualifications appear strong, there are minor inconsistencies in the provided documentation that raise a flag for the admissions committee. The university is currently facing budget constraints and is eager to meet its enrollment targets for the upcoming academic year. What is the most ethically sound and professionally responsible course of action for the admissions committee? Option A. Inform the applicant that a donation to a university development fund would expedite the review of their application and potentially resolve the documentation issues. Option B. Initiate a thorough and independent verification process for the applicant's academic credentials, seeking clarification and additional documentation where necessary, while informing the applicant of the process and potential outcomes. Option C. Proceed with admitting the applicant based on their self-reported qualifications, given the university's enrollment targets and the applicant's apparent potential. Option D. Reject the applicant immediately due to the inconsistencies in their documentation, to maintain strict adherence to established admission procedures. Correct answer is C. Proceed with admitting the applicant based on their self-reported qualifications, given the university's enrollment targets and the applicant's apparent potential. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's immediate financial needs with the long-term ethical implications of accepting potentially misleading information. The admissions committee must exercise careful judgment to uphold academic integrity and the university's reputation. The correct approach involves a thorough and independent verification of the applicant's qualifications, prioritizing accuracy and ethical conduct over expediency. This aligns with the Ahliyya Amman University's commitment to admitting qualified students based on merit and adherence to established academic standards. The ethical imperative is to ensure that all applicants are evaluated fairly and that the university does not compromise its principles for financial gain. This approach upholds the university's integrity and fosters a culture of honesty and academic rigor. An incorrect approach would be to accept the applicant's self-reported qualifications without independent verification, especially when there are doubts. This would violate the ethical principle of due diligence and could lead to admitting unqualified students, thereby undermining the academic standards of the university and potentially misleading other applicants who have met the requirements honestly. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the applicant solely based on the initial suspicion without allowing for a fair review process. This could be discriminatory and unfair, failing to provide the applicant with an opportunity to clarify or provide further evidence. A third incorrect approach would be to seek a bribe or favor in exchange for admission, which is a clear violation of ethical conduct and university policy and potentially illegal. Professionals should approach such situations by first acknowledging the ethical dilemma. They should then consult relevant university policies and ethical guidelines regarding admissions and academic integrity. The decision-making process should involve gathering all necessary information, conducting thorough and impartial investigations, and making a decision based on objective evidence and ethical principles, rather than external pressures or personal biases. Transparency and fairness should be paramount throughout the process. Question 7. The monitoring system demonstrates a pattern of unusual activity during an online examination that strongly suggests potential academic misconduct by a student. According to Ahliyya Amman University's entrance exam regulations, what is the most appropriate immediate next step to ensure adherence to academic integrity and due process? Option A. Contact the student directly to question them about their exam behavior based on the monitoring system's alert. Option B. Discuss the suspicious activity with other faculty members to gauge their opinions before taking any action. Option C. Ignore the alert, assuming it is a technical glitch or a false positive, to avoid unnecessary disruption. Option D. Immediately report the suspected misconduct to the relevant Academic Integrity Committee for a formal investigation and follow the university's established disciplinary procedures. The correct answer is D. Immediately report the suspected misconduct to the relevant Academic Integrity Committee for a formal investigation and follow the university's established disciplinary procedures. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an individual to navigate a situation where a potential breach of academic integrity has been detected through a monitoring system. The core of the challenge lies in balancing the need for a fair and thorough investigation with the university's commitment to upholding academic standards and ensuring a just process for all students. It demands careful judgment to avoid premature accusations, while also acting decisively to address any confirmed misconduct. The correct approach involves initiating a formal, documented investigation process, as outlined by Ahliyya Amman University's academic regulations. This approach is right because it adheres strictly to the university's established procedures for handling academic integrity violations. By gathering evidence, allowing the student to respond, and involving the appropriate academic committees, this method ensures due process and fairness. The regulatory justification stems from the university's internal rules and guidelines, which are designed to protect both the integrity of the academic environment and the rights of the student. Ethically, this approach upholds principles of justice, fairness, and transparency. An incorrect approach would be to immediately dismiss the student or impose a penalty based solely on the initial alert from the monitoring system without further investigation. This fails to acknowledge the possibility of system error or misinterpretation and violates the principle of innocent until proven guilty, which is a cornerstone of academic fairness. It also bypasses the university's established disciplinary procedures, representing a significant regulatory failure. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the alert entirely, assuming it is a false positive. This would be a dereliction of duty, as it fails to address a potential violation of academic integrity and undermines the university's commitment to academic honesty. This inaction constitutes a failure to uphold regulatory requirements for monitoring and addressing academic misconduct. A third incorrect approach would be to discuss the alert with colleagues informally without initiating a formal process. This breaches confidentiality and could lead to reputational damage for the student and the university, as well as potentially prejudicing any future formal investigation. It is an ethical failure and a deviation from established university protocols for handling sensitive information and potential misconduct. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Recognizing the alert as a trigger for investigation, not as conclusive proof of guilt. 2. Consulting and strictly adhering to the university's official policies and procedures for academic integrity. 3. Initiating the formal investigation process in a timely and documented manner. 4. Ensuring all actions taken are fair, impartial, and provide the student with an opportunity to be heard. 5. Maintaining confidentiality throughout the process. Question 8. Examination of the data shows that during the Ahliyya Amman University entrance exam, a proctor observed a candidate discreetly using a mobile phone. The proctor confiscated the phone and noted the incident in their report. The candidate claims they were only checking the time due to a malfunctioning watch. What is the most appropriate course of action according to the university's entrance exam regulations? Option A. Ignore the incident as it might be a minor infraction and proceed with grading the candidate's exam paper. Option B. Conduct a thorough investigation into the incident, allowing the candidate to provide their account, and then refer the case to the appropriate university disciplinary committee for a decision based on the evidence and regulations. Option C. Issue a warning to the candidate and allow them to continue the examination, confiscating the phone for the remainder of the test. Option D. Immediately disqualify the candidate from the examination and reject their application. The correct answer is D. Immediately disqualify the candidate from the examination and reject their application. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in the ethical obligation to maintain academic integrity and fairness, particularly within the context of university entrance examinations. The core dilemma lies in balancing the need to uphold the integrity of the examination process with the potential consequences for a student who may have inadvertently or intentionally breached its rules. The Ahliyya Amman University entrance exam regulations, as the governing framework, mandate strict adherence to examination protocols to ensure a level playing field for all applicants. Any deviation from these regulations, if not handled appropriately, can undermine the credibility of the admissions process and the university itself. The correct approach involves a systematic and fair process of investigation and decision-making, guided by the university's established disciplinary procedures. This approach prioritizes evidence-based assessment and due process for the student. Specifically, it requires gathering all relevant information, including the nature of the alleged breach, any witness statements, and the student's explanation. The subsequent decision must be made by the designated authority, such as the examination committee or a disciplinary board, in accordance with the university's regulations. This ensures that decisions are impartial, consistent, and justifiable, upholding the principles of academic integrity and fairness. An incorrect approach would be to immediately disqualify the student without a proper investigation. This fails to provide the student with an opportunity to explain their actions and may lead to an unjust outcome. It violates the principle of due process, which is fundamental to fair academic and professional environments. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the suspected breach altogether. This undermines the integrity of the examination process, setting a dangerous precedent and potentially allowing unqualified candidates to gain admission, thereby devaluing the qualifications awarded by the university. Furthermore, it fails to uphold the university's responsibility to maintain academic standards. A third incorrect approach would be to impose a penalty that is disproportionate to the alleged offense, without considering the context or the student's intent. This demonstrates a lack of sound judgment and adherence to established disciplinary guidelines. Professionals facing such situations should employ a structured decision-making process. This involves 1. Identifying the ethical and regulatory obligations. 2. Gathering all relevant facts and evidence objectively. 3. Considering the potential impact of different courses of action on all stakeholders, including the student, the university, and the integrity of the examination. 4. Consulting relevant university policies and procedures. 5. Making a decision that is fair, consistent, and justifiable, and documenting the process thoroughly. Question 9. Assessment of the appropriate response when a prospective student at Ahliyya Amman University expresses extreme anxiety about the upcoming entrance exam and hints at seeking help to ensure a passing score. Option A. Advise the student on official university-approved study materials and academic support services available for exam preparation, while clearly reiterating the university's strict policy against any form of academic dishonesty. Option B. Suggest that the student withdraw their application if they are unable to prepare adequately on their own, as the university expects a certain level of self-sufficiency. Option C. Offer to personally review the student's exam answers after the test to provide feedback, implying a level of insider knowledge that could be exploited. Option D. Provide the student with specific questions and answers that are likely to appear on the exam to alleviate their anxiety and guarantee a passing score. The correct answer is A. Advise the student on official university-approved study materials and academic support services available for exam preparation, while clearly reiterating the university's strict policy against any form of academic dishonesty. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic advancement and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The pressure to perform well on an entrance exam, especially for a competitive program at Ahliyya Amman University, can lead students to seek unfair advantages. The university's regulatory framework, as embodied in its entrance exam guidelines and academic integrity policies, mandates that all assessments are conducted fairly and that any form of academic dishonesty is strictly prohibited. The correct approach involves recognizing the student's distress and offering appropriate ethical support within the university's established procedures. This means guiding the student towards legitimate resources for academic preparation and addressing any underlying issues that might be contributing to their anxiety, without compromising the integrity of the entrance exam. This aligns with the university's ethical obligation to uphold academic standards and ensure a level playing field for all applicants. The regulatory framework for Ahliyya Amman University entrance exams emphasizes fairness, transparency, and the prevention of academic misconduct. An incorrect approach that involves providing the student with direct assistance or information related to the exam content would be a severe violation of these regulations. This constitutes academic dishonesty and undermines the validity of the entrance examination process. Such an action would not only be unethical, but also directly contravene the university's policies designed to ensure that admission is based on merit and genuine understanding. Another incorrect approach, such as dismissing the student's concerns without offering any constructive guidance, fails to uphold the university's responsibility to support its prospective students and address potential issues that could lead to academic misconduct. While not directly facilitating cheating, it neglects the proactive measures that contribute to a positive and ethical examination environment. The professional decision-making process in such situations requires a careful balance of empathy and adherence to regulations. Professionals should first acknowledge the student's situation, then clearly articulate the university's policies regarding academic integrity. They should then direct the student to appropriate, authorized resources for preparation, such as official study guides or academic support services. If the student's behavior suggests a potential attempt at academic dishonesty, the professional must follow the university's established reporting procedures without engaging in any actions that could be construed as complicity. Question 10. Which approach would be most aligned with the academic integrity expectations for the Ahliyya Amman University entrance exam when preparing written submissions? Option A. Thoroughly understanding and adhering to Ahliyya Amman University's policies on plagiarism and academic misconduct, ensuring all sources are properly cited, whether for direct quotes or paraphrased ideas. Option B. Relying on common knowledge without citation, believing that such information is universally understood and does not require attribution in an entrance exam context. Option C. Submitting written work that includes ideas or phrases from external sources without explicit acknowledgement, assuming that the overall originality of the submission is sufficient. Option D. Copying sections of text or ideas from online resources or peers without proper citation, with the intention of presenting a more polished or comprehensive answer. The correct answer is A. Thoroughly understanding and adhering to Ahliyya Amman University's policies on plagiarism and academic misconduct, ensuring all sources are properly cited, whether for direct quotes or paraphrased ideas. Explanation. This scenario presents a challenge for prospective students applying to Ahliyya Amman University, requiring them to understand the foundational principles of academic integrity and the university's commitment to upholding these standards. The core of the challenge lies in navigating the ethical considerations of academic work and ensuring that submitted materials are original and properly attributed. A student's understanding of these principles is crucial for a successful and ethical academic journey. The correct approach involves a proactive and honest engagement with academic expectations. This means thoroughly understanding the university's policies on plagiarism and academic misconduct, and ensuring all submitted work adheres to these guidelines. Specifically, it requires diligent citation of all sources, whether direct quotes or paraphrased ideas, to give credit to original authors and avoid misrepresenting others' work as one's own. This aligns with the fundamental ethical principles of honesty and integrity expected in any academic institution, including Ahliyya Amman University, and is a prerequisite for admission. An incorrect approach would be to submit work that contains unacknowledged borrowed material. This constitutes plagiarism, a serious academic offense that undermines the integrity of the educational process. It demonstrates a lack of respect for intellectual property and an unwillingness to engage honestly with the learning material. Such an action would directly violate the academic regulations of Ahliyya Amman University and would likely lead to disqualification from the entrance exam or other disciplinary actions. Another incorrect approach would be to assume that common knowledge does not require citation. While some information is widely known, the university's guidelines likely emphasize the importance of attributing any information that is not common knowledge within the specific context of the assignment or that has been learned through specific research. Failing to cite such information, even if it seems obvious, can still be considered a form of academic dishonesty. A third incorrect approach would be to rely on others' work without proper understanding or acknowledgement, such as copying answers from peers or online sources without attribution. This not only demonstrates a lack of personal effort, but also a fundamental misunderstanding of the purpose of academic assessment, which is to evaluate an individual's learning and comprehension. This directly contravenes the principles of academic integrity and the university's commitment to fostering independent thought. The professional decision-making process for prospective students in this context should involve a thorough review of Ahliyya Amman University's entrance exam guidelines and academic integrity policies. They should prioritize understanding what constitutes plagiarism and how to properly cite sources. When in doubt about whether to cite something, the safest and most ethical approach is to err on the side of caution and provide a citation. This proactive stance ensures compliance and demonstrates a commitment to ethical academic conduct from the outset. Question 11. Implementation of fair assessment practices during the Ahliyya Amman University entrance examination is paramount. As an invigilator, you observe a candidate discreetly using unauthorized notes. According to Ahliyya Amman University's entrance exam regulations, what is the most appropriate immediate action to ensure the integrity of the examination? Option A. Confront the candidate directly and ask them to stop using the notes. Then continue monitoring other candidates. Option B. Discreetly confiscate the unauthorized notes and inform the candidate that their paper will be reviewed by the examination committee. Option C. Report the observation to another invigilator and ask them to handle the situation. Option D. Ignore the observation to avoid disrupting the examination environment and potentially causing a scene. The correct answer is B. Discreetly confiscate the unauthorized notes and inform the candidate that their paper will be reviewed by the examination committee. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire to excel and the university's commitment to academic integrity. The pressure to perform well on entrance exams can lead some students to seek unfair advantages. The university's regulatory framework, as established by Ahliyya Amman University's entrance exam guidelines, strictly prohibits any form of academic dishonesty. The core ethical principle at play is fairness and the equal opportunity for all candidates to demonstrate their knowledge and abilities through legitimate means. The correct approach involves upholding the integrity of the examination process by reporting the observed misconduct. This aligns directly with Ahliyya Amman University's stated policies on academic integrity and the examination rules, which mandate that all candidates adhere to ethical conduct and that any observed violations be brought to the attention of the examination proctors or relevant authorities. This ensures a level playing field and maintains the credibility of the entrance exam as a fair assessment tool. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the observed cheating. This failure to act constitutes a breach of professional responsibility as an invigilator, undermining the university's commitment to academic honesty and allowing an unfair advantage to a candidate. It implicitly condones the dishonest behavior, which is contrary to the spirit and letter of the Ahliyya Amman University entrance exam regulations. Another incorrect approach would be to confront the student directly and attempt to resolve the issue without involving the proper university authorities. This bypasses the established disciplinary procedures outlined by the university for handling academic misconduct. Such an action could lead to an escalation of the situation, potential accusations of bias, and a failure to follow the prescribed protocol for addressing cheating, thereby compromising the integrity of the investigation and any subsequent disciplinary action. A further incorrect approach would be to report the incident to a fellow invigilator for them to handle. While collaboration is often encouraged, the ultimate responsibility for reporting serious breaches of examination rules typically rests with the invigilator who witnesses the act. Delegating this responsibility without ensuring it is formally addressed through the university's established channels can lead to the incident being overlooked or mishandled. Failing to meet the university's expectations for vigilance and adherence to its academic integrity policies, the professional decision-making process in such situations should involve immediate, discreet observation, followed by a formal, objective report to the designated university examination officials, as per the Ahliyya Amman University Entrance Exam Guidelines. This ensures that the university's established procedures for investigating and addressing academic misconduct are followed, maintaining fairness and upholding the integrity of the examination process. Question 12. Governance review demonstrates that the Ahliyya Amman University entrance exam process has potential vulnerabilities that could impact its fairness and efficiency. Which of the following approaches best addresses these findings in line with the university's commitment to academic excellence and regulatory compliance? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive audit of the entire admissions and examination process to identify specific bottlenecks, procedural weaknesses, and areas for enhancement, followed by the development of targeted improvement strategies. Option B. Randomly alter the difficulty and content of examination papers on a daily basis to prevent predictability and ensure a higher level of challenge. Option C. Institute a complete lockdown of all external communication channels for students and staff during the entire examination period. Option D. Immediately increase the number of invigilators present during all examination sessions to bolster supervision and deter potential misconduct. The correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive audit of the entire admissions and examination process to identify specific bottlenecks, procedural weaknesses, and areas for enhancement, followed by the development of targeted improvement strategies. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the practicalities of managing student admissions and the potential for external influence. The Ahliyya Amman University entrance exam regulations, while not explicitly detailed here, are presumed to prioritize fairness, transparency, and meritocracy in the selection process. The challenge lies in identifying and mitigating any processes that could undermine these principles. The correct approach involves a systematic review of the admissions process to identify and address any inefficiencies or vulnerabilities that could lead to unfair outcomes or compromise the integrity of the entrance exam. This aligns with the general principles of good governance and operational efficiency expected of educational institutions. Specifically, it requires a proactive and data-driven assessment to pinpoint areas for improvement, ensuring that the admissions process is robust, equitable, and adheres to the university's stated objectives and any applicable Jordanian higher education regulations. This approach prioritizes long-term systemic improvement over immediate, potentially superficial fixes, an approach that focuses solely on increasing the number of exam supervisors without understanding the root cause of potential issues is incorrect. This is a reactive measure that does not address underlying process flaws and may be an inefficient use of resources. It fails to identify whether the problem is with the exam design, the administration, or the security protocols themselves. Another incorrect approach would be to implement a blanket ban on all external communication during the exam period. While security is important, such a rigid measure could be overly restrictive, hinder legitimate communication channels necessary for exam administration, and may not be proportionate to the identified risks. It fails to distinguish between necessary administrative communication and potential attempts to compromise exam integrity. Finally, an approach that involves randomly changing exam questions without a clear rationale or a structured process for question development and validation is professionally unsound. This could lead to inconsistent difficulty levels, unfairness to students who prepared for a specific curriculum, and could undermine the validity of the exam as a measure of academic preparedness. It lacks the systematic rigor required for effective assessment and process management. Professionals should approach such situations by first understanding the specific regulatory framework and internal policies governing university admissions and examinations. They should then employ a structured problem-solving methodology, starting with a thorough diagnostic phase to identify root causes. This involves gathering data, analyzing existing processes, and consulting relevant stakeholders. Based on this analysis, they should develop and implement targeted solutions that are both effective and compliant with regulations, prioritizing fairness, transparency, and continuous improvement. Question 13. During the evaluation of candidates for admission to Ahliyya Amman University, which of the following approaches best aligns with the principles and requirements of the university's entrance examination framework? Option A. Leveraging personal acquaintances within the university administration to advocate for a candidate's admission. Option B. Prioritizing objective assessment of academic potential through the entrance examination and other officially sanctioned evaluation methods. Option C. Focusing primarily on an applicant's extracurricular achievements, irrespective of their performance on the entrance examination. Option D. Giving significant weight to an applicant's family's financial contribution to the university's development fund. Correct answer is B. Prioritizing objective assessment of academic potential through the entrance examination and other officially sanctioned evaluation methods. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of the foundational principles of university admissions within the specific regulatory and ethical framework of Ahliyya Amman University. The challenge lies in distinguishing between approaches that align with fairness, transparency, and meritocracy, as expected by the university's entrance examination guidelines, and those that might introduce bias or circumvent established procedures. Careful judgment is required to select the approach that best upholds the integrity of the admissions process. The correct approach involves prioritizing objective assessment criteria and ensuring equitable treatment for all applicants, as mandated by the Ahliyya Amman University entrance exam framework. This means focusing on the applicant's demonstrated academic potential and suitability for the chosen program, as measured by the standardized entrance examination and any other officially sanctioned evaluation methods. This approach is right because it directly adheres to the principles of merit-based selection and equal opportunity, which are fundamental to fair academic admissions and are implicitly or explicitly outlined in university entrance regulations. It ensures that decisions are based on verifiable qualifications and performance, minimizing subjective influence and promoting trust in the university selection process. An incorrect approach that relies on personal connections or favors introduces an element of undue influence and potential bias, violating the principle of equal opportunity. This undermines the meritocratic basis of the entrance examination and can lead to the admission of less qualified candidates, thereby compromising academic standards and the reputation of the university. Such an approach is ethically unsound and likely contravenes the spirit, if not the letter, of any university regulations promoting fairness and transparency in admissions. Another incorrect approach that involves overlooking or downplaying the importance of the entrance examination results in favor of other, less standardized criteria, fails to respect the established evaluation process. The entrance exam is designed to be a primary, objective measure of an applicant's readiness. Deviating from this without a clear, university-approved rationale suggests a disregard for the established procedures and can lead to inconsistent and potentially unfair admissions decisions. This approach risks undermining the validity of the entrance examination itself. A further incorrect approach that focuses solely on an applicant's perceived financial capacity rather than their academic merit is fundamentally flawed. University admissions, particularly at the entrance exam stage, are intended to assess academic potential and suitability for study, not an applicant's ability to pay. Prioritizing financial capacity over academic performance is ethically questionable and directly contradicts the purpose of a merit-based entrance examination, potentially leading to the exclusion of academically strong candidates who may have financial constraints. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the university's stated admission policies and the ethical principles governing academic selection. Professionals should always ask, does this approach align with the university's entrance examination guidelines? Does it promote fairness and equal opportunity for all applicants? Is the decision based on objective, verifiable criteria? If the answer to any of these questions is no, the approach should be reconsidered, and revised to ensure compliance with regulatory and ethical standards. Question 14. The efficiency study reveals that a significant number of international applicants to Ahliyya Amman University are submitting academic credentials from institutions that are not widely recognized within the Jordanian higher education system. The admissions committee is under pressure to increase enrollment numbers for the upcoming academic year. What is the most appropriate course of action for the admissions committee to ensure compliance with Jordanian higher education regulations while addressing the efficiency concerns? Option A. Prioritize applicants with credentials from institutions that are already familiar to the university, while deferring the evaluation of credentials from less familiar institutions to a later date. Option B. Accept all international academic credentials as submitted, assuming the applicant's previous institutions are legitimate, to expedite the admission process and meet enrollment targets. Option C. Rely on the applicant's self-attested copies of transcripts and certificates, and only request official documents if a student is admitted and enrolls. Option D. Implement a rigorous verification process for all international academic credentials, cross-referencing them with the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research's list of recognized institutions and equivalency standards, even if it temporarily slows down the admission of some applicants. The correct answer is D. Implement a rigorous verification process for all international academic credentials, cross-referencing them with the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research's list of recognized institutions and equivalency standards, even if it temporarily slows down the admission of some applicants. Explanation: the efficiency study reveals a potential gap in the university's student admission process, specifically concerning the verification of academic credentials submitted by international applicants. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's commitment to admitting qualified students with the imperative to adhere strictly to Jordanian higher education regulations and Ahliyya Amman University's internal policies. Misinterpreting or overlooking these regulations could lead to admitting unqualified students, compromising academic integrity, and potentially facing sanctions from the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research. The correct approach involves a thorough review of all submitted international academic documents against the standards set by the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research in Jordan and Ahliyya Amman University's specific admission guidelines for foreign students. This includes verifying the equivalency of foreign qualifications with the Jordanian Secondary School Certificate, (TAWJIHI), and ensuring that the issuing institutions are recognized. This meticulous verification process is mandated by Jordanian higher education law, which emphasizes the importance of academic accreditation and the integrity of the admission process for all students, especially those with international qualifications. Adhering to these regulations ensures fairness, maintains academic standards, and prevents the admission of students who may not possess the foundational knowledge required for university-level study. An incorrect approach would be to accept the submitted documents at face value without independent verification, assuming that foreign institutions' credentials are automatically equivalent. This fails to comply with the ministry's requirement for credential evaluation and Ahliyya Amman University's internal procedures designed to uphold academic standards. Another incorrect approach would be to expedite the admission process for international students based on perceived urgency or pressure from external parties, bypassing the established verification steps. This disregards the regulatory framework and ethical obligation to ensure all admitted students meet the required academic benchmarks, potentially leading to a compromised student body and reputational damage. A third incorrect approach would be to rely solely on the applicant's self-declaration of academic achievements without seeking official transcripts or verification from the relevant educational bodies. This practice is contrary to the principles of due diligence and the regulatory expectation of robust verification in academic admissions. Professionals in university admissions should adopt a systematic decision-making process that prioritizes regulatory compliance and ethical conduct. This involves 1. Understanding and internalizing all relevant Jordanian higher education laws and university-specific admission policies. 2. Establishing clear documented procedures for credential verification, especially for international applicants. 3. Implementing a robust system for cross-referencing submitted documents with official databases, or seeking direct verification from issuing institutions and relevant ministries. 4. Maintaining transparency and consistency in the application of admission criteria. 5. Seeking clarification from regulatory bodies or senior university administration when faced with ambiguous situations or novel credential types. Question 15. Performance analysis shows a statistically significant cluster of unusually high scores in a specific section of the Ahliyya Amman University entrance exam, concentrated among candidates who took the exam in a particular hall. This pattern deviates markedly from the overall distribution of scores and historical performance data. What is the most appropriate course of action for the University Admissions Committee? Strictly adhering to Ahliyya Amman University's entrance exam regulations and Jordanian higher education guidelines. Option A. Immediately disqualify all candidates from the affected hall due to suspected irregularities, without further investigation, to maintain the perceived fairness of the exam. Option B. Publicly announce that the exam results for the affected hall are under review and postpone admissions decisions for all candidates until a definitive conclusion is reached, regardless of the investigation's complexity. Option C. Attribute the anomalies to random statistical variation or minor environmental factors in that specific hall, and proceed with admissions based on the current scores to meet enrollment targets. Option D. Initiate a thorough, impartial investigation into the performance anomalies, gathering all relevant evidence and following the university's established procedures for exam irregularities, while ensuring the integrity of the admissions process. Correct answer is D. Initiate a thorough, impartial investigation into the performance anomalies, gathering all relevant evidence and following the university's established procedures for exam irregularities, while ensuring the integrity of the admissions process. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a challenge in balancing academic integrity with the practicalities of university admissions. The university entrance exam is a critical gatekeeper, and ensuring its fairness and validity is paramount. The pressure to meet enrollment targets can create a temptation to overlook irregularities, but doing so undermines the credibility of the admissions process and the institution itself. The professional challenge lies in upholding ethical standards and regulatory compliance even when faced with institutional pressures. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough and impartial investigation of the performance anomalies, adhering strictly to Ahliyya Amman University's established examination regulations and the Jordanian Higher Education Accreditation Commission's guidelines. This means gathering all relevant evidence, including exam scripts, proctor reports, and any digital records, and analyzing them objectively. If evidence suggests a breach of regulations, such as cheating or procedural errors, the university must follow its defined disciplinary procedures. This approach is correct because it prioritizes fairness to all applicants, upholds the integrity of the examination process, and ensures compliance with the regulatory framework governing university admissions in Jordan. It demonstrates a commitment to meritocracy and the principles of sound academic governance. Incorrect approach is analysis. Failing to investigate thoroughly and instead attributing the anomalies to random variation or minor errors is an incorrect approach. This failure to act on potential irregularities violates the principle of fairness to all candidates who took the exam under proper conditions. It also risks allowing unqualified candidates to gain admission, thereby devaluing the degrees awarded by the university and potentially contravening the spirit, if not the letter, of the accreditation guidelines which emphasize quality and standards. Implementing immediate punitive measures without a proper investigation is also an incorrect approach. This bypasses due process and could unfairly penalize students if the anomalies are indeed due to administrative errors or other factors not attributable to student misconduct. This violates the principles of natural justice and the university's own internal regulations regarding disciplinary procedures. Ignoring the anomalies altogether to meet enrollment targets is the most egregious incorrect approach. This directly compromises academic integrity and the credibility of the university. It signals a prioritization of institutional goals over ethical conduct and regulatory compliance, which can have severe long-term consequences for the university's reputation and its standing with the accreditation bodies. Professional reasoning. Professionals in university admissions must adopt a systematic and ethical decision-making process. This involves 1. Identifying the issue, recognizing performance anomalies that deviate significantly from expected patterns. 2. Consulting the framework, reviewing Ahliyya Amman University's entrance exam regulations and relevant Jordanian higher education laws and guidelines. 3. Gathering evidence, collecting all pertinent data and documentation related to the exam. 4. Objective analysis, evaluating the evidence impartially to determine the cause of the anomalies. 5. Applying procedures, following established protocols for investigation and, if necessary, disciplinary action or re-evaluation. 6. Documentation and reporting, maintaining clear records of the process and outcomes. This structured approach ensures that decisions are fair, transparent, and compliant with all applicable regulations. Question 16. Operational review demonstrates a potential for inconsistencies in how applicant data is being utilized during the Ahliyya Amman University entrance examination evaluation process, raising concerns about fairness and the integrity of admissions. What is the most appropriate immediate course of action for the university administration? Option A. Focus exclusively on enhancing the technical security of applicant databases, without investigating the specific concerns raised about data utilization in evaluations. Option B. Disregard the findings of the operational review, assuming that existing protocols are sufficient and no significant issues exist. Option C. Initiate a comprehensive review of all data handling protocols and admission evaluation criteria to identify and address any potential biases or procedural weaknesses, ensuring adherence to university regulations and ethical standards for admissions. Option D. Immediately implement a new, complex scoring system for all future applicants, without a thorough analysis of its impact on fairness or data requirements. The correct answer is C. Initiate a comprehensive review of all data handling protocols and admission evaluation criteria to identify and address any potential biases or procedural weaknesses, ensuring adherence to university regulations and ethical standards for admissions. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to ensuring the integrity of the Ahliyya Amman University entrance examination process, specifically concerning the handling of applicant data and the potential for bias. The university, as an educational institution, has a responsibility to maintain fair and transparent admission procedures, which includes safeguarding applicant information and ensuring that evaluation criteria are applied equitably. The challenge lies in balancing the need for efficient data management with the ethical imperative to prevent any form of discrimination or unfair advantage. The correct approach involves a thorough review of existing data handling protocols and admission criteria to identify and mitigate any potential for bias or data misuse. This aligns with the principles of fairness, transparency, and accountability expected of academic institutions. Specifically, it requires a proactive stance in ensuring that all applicant data is handled in accordance with university policies and relevant Jordanian data protection guidelines, if applicable, though for this exam, we focus solely on university-specific regulations and general ethical principles of academic integrity. The focus is on establishing clear, objective, and consistently applied admission standards, and ensuring that applicant data is used solely for the purpose of evaluating their qualifications for admission, without any undue influence or discriminatory practices. An incorrect approach would be to dismiss the findings of the operational review without further investigation. This fails to uphold the university's responsibility to ensure a fair admission process, and could lead to continued or even exacerbated issues of bias or data mishandling. Ethically, it demonstrates a lack of diligence and a disregard for the principles of fairness and integrity. Another incorrect approach would be to implement immediate, sweeping changes to the admission criteria based on a single observation, without a comprehensive understanding of the underlying causes or potential unintended consequences. This could inadvertently introduce new forms of bias or disrupt the established evaluation process without addressing the root problem. It lacks the systematic and evidence-based approach required for effective policy and procedural adjustments. A further incorrect approach would be to focus solely on technical data security measures without addressing the potential for bias in the evaluation process itself. While data security is important, it does not resolve issues related to the fair and equitable assessment of applicants. This approach is incomplete and fails to address the full scope of the challenge. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic approach. First, acknowledging and investigating any reported irregularities. Second, conducting a comprehensive review of relevant policies, procedures, and data handling practices. Third, identifying specific areas of concern, such as potential bias in criteria or data misuse. Fourth, developing and implementing targeted solutions that are aligned with ethical principles and university regulations. And finally, establishing mechanisms for ongoing monitoring and evaluation to ensure the continued integrity of the admission process. Question 17. Stakeholder feedback indicates potential irregularities in the administration of the Ahliyya Amman University entrance examination, raising concerns about fairness and the validity of the assessment process. As a member of the university's admissions committee, what is the most appropriate initial course of action to address these concerns while upholding the integrity of the examination and adhering to university regulations? Option A. Immediately implement new, more stringent examination procedures for all future entrance exams to preemptively address any perceived issues without investigating the current feedback. Option B. Request the immediate resignation of the examination proctors involved in the areas where feedback was received, pending a full investigation. Option C. Publicly issue a statement assuring all stakeholders that the entrance examination process is robust and has always been conducted with the highest standards of integrity, dismissing the feedback as unsubstantiated. Option D. Form a special committee composed of academic and administrative staff to conduct a thorough, objective review of the feedback against the university's examination guidelines and recommend appropriate actions. The correct answer is D. Form a special committee composed of academic and administrative staff to conduct a thorough, objective review of the feedback against the university's examination guidelines and recommend appropriate actions. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires navigating the ethical considerations of academic integrity while responding to external feedback that could impact the university's reputation. The university entrance exam is a critical gateway, and ensuring its fairness and validity is paramount. The challenge lies in balancing the need for transparency and responsiveness to feedback with the imperative to uphold the integrity of the examination process and avoid undue influence or disruption. The correct approach involves a systematic and evidence-based review of the feedback. This entails forming a dedicated committee comprising relevant academic and administrative staff to thoroughly investigate the claims. The committee's mandate should be to objectively assess the validity of the feedback against the established examination guidelines and regulations of Ahliyya Amman University. If the feedback points to specific procedural flaws or potential breaches of the examination's integrity, the committee should recommend appropriate remedial actions, which could range from reviewing specific question papers to implementing enhanced proctoring measures for future exams. This approach aligns with the university's commitment to academic excellence and fair assessment practices, as mandated by its internal regulations and the broader Jordanian higher education framework governing university admissions. It demonstrates a proactive and responsible stance in addressing concerns while safeguarding the credibility of the entrance examination. An incorrect approach would be to dismiss the feedback outright without any investigation. This fails to acknowledge the importance of stakeholder concerns and could lead to a perception of complacency or a lack of commitment to fairness, potentially damaging the university's reputation and violating the spirit of continuous improvement embedded in academic governance. Another incorrect approach would be to immediately implement significant changes to the examination process based solely on the feedback, without a thorough review. This could be disruptive, unfair to students who have already prepared under existing conditions, and might introduce new vulnerabilities if the changes are not well considered or aligned with the university's established examination policies. It bypasses the due diligence required to ensure that any changes are necessary, effective, and compliant with university regulations. A third incorrect approach would be to publicly address the feedback with definitive statements about the exam's integrity before a proper investigation is completed. This premature communication could be misleading if the feedback is later found to have merit, or it could unnecessarily cause alarm among prospective students and their families, undermining confidence in the university. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured response. First, acknowledge the feedback received. Second, establish a clear protocol for investigation, including forming an appropriate committee and defining its scope. Third, Conduct a thorough and impartial review, referencing the Ahliyya Amman University's examination regulations and any relevant Jordanian Ministry of Higher Education guidelines. Fourth, based on the findings, determine and implement appropriate actions, ensuring transparency in the process and outcomes where feasible and appropriate. Finally, communicate the findings and actions taken to relevant stakeholders in a timely and professional manner. Question 18. The audit findings indicate a significant discrepancy between the number of admitted students and the corresponding financial aid allocations processed by the university's admissions and finance departments. The university is facing pressure to meet its annual revenue targets. Which of the following approaches best addresses this situation in accordance with Ahliyya Amman University's regulatory framework and general principles of academic governance? Option A. Initiate an immediate, comprehensive review of the admissions and financial aid records to identify the root cause of the discrepancy, involving relevant department heads and ensuring all findings are documented and reported according to university policy. Option B. Publicly announce a temporary freeze on all new financial aid applications until the discrepancy is fully resolved to signal transparency to stakeholders. Option C. Overlook the discrepancy for the current academic year, focusing on improving data collection processes for future admission cycles to avoid disrupting current financial planning. Option D. Instruct the finance department to adjust the financial aid allocations retroactively to match the number of admitted students, prioritizing the immediate revenue targets. The correct answer is A. Initiate an immediate, comprehensive review of the admissions and financial aid records to identify the root cause of the discrepancy, involving relevant department heads and ensuring all findings are documented and reported according to university policy. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the potential conflict between the university's immediate financial needs and the ethical obligation to maintain academic integrity and transparency. The audit findings highlight a discrepancy that, if not addressed properly, could undermine the credibility of the university's admissions process and its reputation. Careful judgment is required to balance the university's operational requirements with its commitment to fair and equitable admissions. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective investigation of the audit findings. This means gathering all relevant documentation, interviewing key personnel involved in the admissions and financial aid processes, and assessing the extent of any irregularities. The ultimate goal is to identify the root cause of the discrepancy and determine the appropriate corrective actions. This approach aligns with the principles of good governance and accountability, which are implicitly expected of any educational institution operating under Jordanian law and university regulations. Specifically, adherence to the Ahliyya Amman University's internal regulations and the broader Jordanian higher education law would mandate a transparent and fair process for handling such discrepancies. The university's charter and any accreditation standards would also likely require a commitment to ethical conduct and due diligence in its operations. An incorrect approach would be to dismiss the audit findings without proper investigation, especially if driven by pressure to meet financial targets. This would represent a failure to uphold the university's responsibility to its students and stakeholders, potentially violating principles of fairness and transparency. Another incorrect approach would be to implement a superficial fix without understanding the underlying issues, which could lead to recurring problems and further erode trust. Such actions would likely contravene the spirit, if not the letter, of university regulations designed to ensure the integrity of admissions and financial processes. Furthermore, any attempt to conceal or downplay the findings would be a serious ethical lapse and could have legal repercussions under Jordanian law governing educational institutions. Professionals in such situations should employ a structured decision-making framework that prioritizes ethical considerations and regulatory compliance. This framework typically involves 1. Identifying the ethical and regulatory issues at play. 2. Gathering all relevant facts and information. 3. Identifying and evaluating alternative courses of action. 4. Making a decision based on ethical principles and regulatory requirements. 5. Implementing the decision and monitoring its effectiveness. 6. Reflecting on the process and outcomes to learn for future situations. In this case, The framework would guide the decision-maker to investigate thoroughly, consult relevant university policies and Jordanian higher education laws, and take appropriate corrective action to ensure the integrity of the admissions process. Question 19. Risk assessment procedures indicate that a prospective student preparing for the Ahliyya Amman University entrance exam is considering utilizing an external service that offers personalized essay review and editing for their application essays. The student is unsure if this level of external assistance aligns with the university's academic integrity policies for entrance examinations. Which of the following actions best represents a responsible and compliant approach for the student? Option A. The student should contact the Ahliyya Amman University's admissions office or academic advising department to seek explicit clarification on the permissible scope of external assistance for entrance exam application components. Option B. The student should rely on the external services, guarantee that their methods are ethical and compliant with university standards. Option C. The student should forego using any external services to avoid any potential issues, even if it means not receiving potentially beneficial feedback. Option D. The student should proceed with the external service, assuming that essay review and editing are standard preparatory activities for university applications. Correct answer is D. The student should proceed with the external service, assuming that essay review and editing are standard preparatory activities for university applications. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire to present their best work and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The challenge lies in identifying the boundary between legitimate academic support and academic misconduct, particularly when the support involves external assistance that could be perceived as compromising the originality of the student's submission. Careful judgment is required to uphold the university's standards while also being fair to the student's efforts. The correct approach involves the student seeking clarification from the university's academic advising or student affairs department regarding the acceptable scope of external assistance for their entrance exam preparation. This approach is correct because it proactively addresses potential ambiguities by consulting the official channels responsible for interpreting and enforcing university regulations. It demonstrates a commitment to understanding and adhering to the Ahliyya Amman University's specific guidelines for entrance examinations, thereby upholding academic integrity and ensuring a fair assessment process. This aligns with the university's regulatory framework, which implicitly requires students to understand and comply with its academic policies. An incorrect approach would be for the student to proceed with using the external service without seeking clarification, assuming their interpretation of preparation is acceptable. This is incorrect because it bypasses the established channels for understanding university regulations and risks violating academic integrity policies, potentially leading to severe consequences, such as disqualification from the entrance exam. It fails to demonstrate due diligence in understanding the specific rules of Ahliyya Amman University. Another incorrect approach would be for the student to rely solely on the assurances of the external service provider regarding the legitimacy of their methods. This is incorrect because the primary responsibility for understanding and adhering to university regulations rests with the student, not a third-party service. Relying on the provider's interpretation without independent verification from the university itself is a failure to exercise professional judgment and a disregard for the university's authority in setting its own academic standards. A professional decision-making process for similar situations involves a proactive and transparent approach. First, identify the core issue and potential risks to academic integrity. Second, consult the official governing documents and policies of the institution. In this case, Ahliyya Amman University's entrance exam guidelines and academic integrity policies. Third, if ambiguity persists, seek clarification from the designated university authorities, academic advising, student affairs, or the admissions office. Fourth, act only after obtaining clear guidance and ensuring full compliance with the university's regulations. This process prioritizes adherence to established rules and ethical conduct. Question 20. The risk matrix shows a high probability of not meeting the target enrollment for the upcoming academic year, which could impact the university's financial stability. The admissions committee is reviewing applications, and there is a strong internal push to accept candidates who narrowly miss the minimum GPA requirement, arguing that their potential for success can be nurtured through university support programs. Which of the following represents the most professionally sound approach for the admissions committee? Option A. Focus on accepting a larger number of applicants who meet the minimum GPA but have weaker scores in other assessment areas, as this still technically fulfills the GPA requirement. Option B. Recommend a temporary waiver of the minimum GPA requirement for a significant portion of applicants who are close to the threshold to immediately boost enrollment numbers and secure financial stability. Option C. Propose the creation of a special admissions track for candidates who do not meet the standard GPA, offering them a conditional acceptance with a significantly different curriculum and support structure. Option D. Strictly adhere to the established minimum GPA requirement for all applicants, ensuring that only those who meet the defined academic threshold are considered for admission, and explore alternative strategies for meeting enrollment targets. The correct answer is D. Strictly adhere to the established minimum GPA requirement for all applicants, ensuring that only those who meet the defined academic threshold are considered for admission, and explore alternative strategies for meeting enrollment targets. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's immediate financial needs and the long-term integrity of its academic admissions process. The pressure to meet enrollment targets can lead to a temptation to lower standards, which directly undermines the university's reputation and the value of its degrees. Careful judgment is required to balance institutional goals with ethical responsibilities. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective assessment of all applicant qualifications against the established admission criteria, without undue influence from enrollment pressures. This aligns with the Ahliyya Amman University's stated commitment to academic excellence and fair evaluation, as typically outlined in its academic regulations and admissions policies. Adhering to these internal guidelines ensures that admissions decisions are merit-based and defensible, upholding the university's credibility. An incorrect approach that prioritizes meeting enrollment targets by overlooking deficiencies in applicant qualifications would violate the university's academic integrity principles. This could be seen as a breach of trust with prospective students, current students, and the wider academic community. Furthermore, it could lead to a decline in the academic performance of the student body, negatively impacting teaching quality and graduate outcomes, which are implicitly governed by the university's commitment to educational standards. Another incorrect approach that involves creating a separate, less stringent set of criteria for a specific group of applicants, solely to boost numbers, would be discriminatory and undermine the fairness of the admissions process. This would likely contravene internal university policies on equal opportunity and fair treatment, and could lead to reputational damage and potential challenges to the validity of the admissions process. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the university's mission, values, and regulatory framework. Professionals should first identify the core ethical principles at play, such as fairness, integrity, and academic rigor. They should then consult relevant university policies and guidelines to understand the established procedures and standards. If faced with conflicting pressures, seeking guidance from senior management or an ethics committee is crucial. The decision should always prioritize upholding the long-term reputation and academic standards of the institution over short-term gains.